Hi everyone, I'm Father Michael McAndrew, and welcome to the porch here at our house. Today is the feast of the Solemnity of Jesus, and I thought that since the solemnity took place outside, we should be outside as well. Today we commemorate that day that Jesus actually ascended into heaven right there in front of all of his disciples after he had been raised from the dead and finally going up into heaven to be seated at the right hand of God the Father. I kind of wonder what it was like for the disciples that day and when they saw all of this happening, when they saw Jesus right there in front of their eyes ascending to heaven. I imagine that they felt a lot of things, but I think if I was one of them, I might have been primarily just kind of bummed out. Bummed out because Jesus seems to be leaving for good this time. And they've been with him for so long. They've seen him on earth for, 3+ years through his teaching and everything, through his passion and death and resurrection. And now he's been with them for some time after his resurrection, but now it seems that he's gone. It seems he's gone forever. So it's true that Jesus was taken from the midst of the disciples here on earth in bodily form, but his presence is still here and it still remains. Do you remember that last line of the gospel for today? Jesus tells his disciples, "Behold, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." Yet even with the reassurance of that promise and that promise of the Holy Spirit, the disciples still have a hard time moving on. We hear in our first reading from the book of the Acts of the Apostles that the disciples are standing there looking at the sky as Jesus ascends into heaven. And they continue to stand there, and they have to be kind of shaken out of that trance by these two men who are in white garments that come along. So they can't quite understand what's happening, and they're kind of just stuck there looking at the sky. I think the disciples have a desire, a natural desire to want to hold on to Jesus in the way that they know him, the way that he is. They want to beg him to stay, and so that they could be continually edified and built up by his teaching and by his love right there in bodily form. And as human beings, I think we all share that kind of tendency, that desire for things to stay the same, and a natural desire to not want to really move on all the time. When things change in our lives, it means that things are going to be thrown into confusion, and there's probably going to be some difficulty involved with all of that. I think when we get like a new job, or when we move to a new house, a new city, whatever it may be, there's a lot that changes for us. I remember when I was in 7th grade being told that we were going to move to another town before I moved to 8th grade. And that was a really difficult thing for me because it meant that I'd have a new school, a new house, everything. Making new friends in a new setting was hard. And I know I would have much rather stayed put in my old house, my old town, and stayed with my old friends. The one shining thing about it all is that my mom was the Spanish teacher at the new school I was going to, so she actually helped me make friends, so I'm still grateful to her for that. Thanks, Mom. I think that we all have these times of change. Today we are celebrating our graduates here in town, and for all of you who are graduating, you know that there is a great deal of change headed in your near future. Already there is a lot of change coming for you. You may be going off to college in the fall, or you may be not. You may be getting a job, or you may be not. And perhaps you don't know what the future holds yet. So all of that kind of holds a little bit of anxiety for us, doesn't it? It makes things a little bit difficult to move on. Change can come in even more dramatic ways. When somebody dies, when we lose a loved one, there's a natural desire for us to hold on to that person. We want to hug them one last time. We want to talk to them once more. We want to tell them we love them just one more time. And we like to hold on to those memories we have of that person, those memories that we cling to of them, of what we used to do with them. Moving on without that person means learning to live without that presence in our lives. Especially if it's a parent or a supportive friend, we get the sense or the feeling that we have to start assuming a new level of responsibility in our own lives because we have to fill the place of that person, whatever place they filled in our lives. I think the experience of the disciples today at the ascension of Jesus is similar to what we experience when we experience change or when we experience someone not being in our lives anymore. They don't know what to do next. They don't want to change and they don't want to see Jesus go. And now they've been given this great task by Jesus as he leaves. He says that he tells them to go and make disciples of all nations. I bet they're wondering to themselves, do I have what it takes to do that? Or how are we supposed to do this great task without Jesus here to help us? That call to make disciples of all nations is for all of us. It is the call of the church. It's my call and it's your call. It doesn't matter what our age, our ability, our culture, education, or even a sense of worthiness. We are all called to that great task of making disciples and to evangelizing. I think the good news for us, though, is that our confidence in that task is not within ourselves. It's not within each of us and what we can do. It's in Jesus and his promise to be with his disciples always to the end of the age. The ascension of Jesus doesn't mean that Jesus has left or abandoned us. Pope Benedict XVI said, "It would be a mistake to interpret the ascension as the temporary absence of Christ from the world. Rather, we go to heaven to the extent that we go to Jesus Christ and enter into him." Heaven is a person. Heaven is a person. Jesus himself is what we call heaven. Yet it's still scary to move on. It's easier to cling to the memories of old ways of doing things, and keep staring up at the sky as the disciples did. But we do not need to be afraid. Jesus is with us in a new and powerful way. I can recall a time in seminary when a classmate asked a professor if it would have been better for each of us to be there with Jesus when he was on earth in the flesh, or if it is better now to be where we are now in the church. And that professor said, without qualification, it is better for us now. We are in the better situation now because we know Jesus in a deeper and more intimate way. And we can know Jesus in that way because he lives within each of us. And he is in his body, the church. The church now is full of the Holy Spirit, the advocate. Jesus said in our first reading that you will receive the Holy Spirit and power will come upon you, and you will be my witnesses to the ends of the earth. So we need not be afraid. My friends, I speak to each of you individually. You have the gift of the Holy Spirit within you, the abiding presence of Jesus. It's not your worthiness or ability that counts, but his power that works through you. So we can move forward, not clinging to the past, and we have all that we need because we have Jesus. So go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations.